The loudest sound in my whole neighborhood wasn't a siren or a storm, it was the crunch of tire treads ripping across my front lawn. Again. And the night it finally stopped. It stopped on camera in front of a crowd with a tow truck's chain clinking like a judge's gavel. I watched Diane Whitmore's spotless white BMW get treated like it treated my grass, like it didn't have the right to be there. I'm Mark Reynolds, 63, retired mechanical engineer, the guy who still trims his lawn edges like they're part of a blueprint. Maple Glen Estates is the kind of suburb that smells like fresh mulch and quiet judgment, and it's run by the Homeowners Association like it's a small kingdom. My corner lot is the first thing you see when you turn in. I'm not rich, I'm not flashy, but that lawn looked like a magazine cover. Diagonal stripes, sharp borders, no weeds daring to breathe. Then Diane happened. 49 perfect hair, perfect nails, clipboard always in hand like it's a weapon she's legally allowed to carry. She was the HOA president, and she wore that title the way some people wear a badge, not to help anybody, to remind everybody. Behind my property sits the community center, and behind that is a parking lot with plenty of spaces. But Diane discovered if she cut across my grass, she could park 15 feet from the side door instead of walking like the rest of humanity. The first time I gave her the benefit of the doubt. I walked out, friendly voice hands in pockets, and said, "Hey Diane, could you not drive on my lawn?" She didn't even look up from her clipboard. "It's HOA business, Mark," she said, like that explained everything. Your grass will grow back. The second time I put out a simple rope boundary, tasteful low, the kind you'd see at a museum. She drove straight through it like it was a suggestion. I stood at my window watching the posts tumble, and I felt my jaw go tight in that specific way that says, "Okay, so this is what we're doing." When you've spent decades designing systems, you notice patterns, and Diane's pattern was clear. She tested limits because no one ever pushed back. I called the HOA office. I emailed. I documented. I stayed calm. 3 days later, a white envelope showed up in my mailbox with Maple Glen letterhead. Not an apology. A violation notice. Unapproved exterior modification creating safety hazards. $150 a day unless I removed my unsightly barrier. I read it twice, then laughed once, short, bitter, the kind of laugh you do when you realize you're not dealing with a reasonable person. The rope was on my property, 20 feet from the street. But sure, Diane, my little rope was a threat to civilization. I paid the fine because I couldn't afford to play chicken with fees. That part hurt more than the ruts, honestly. Writing a check because someone with a clipboard wanted to flex, and she kept doing it. Not once in a while, regularly, like my lawn was her private driveway. By the 10th time, the grass was scarred in the same place every single time. Same entry angle, same exit point, same little pause where she'd stop and check her reflection in her side mirror. That pause stuck with me, because predictability isn't just annoying, it's useful. I tried signage next, bright, clear, impossible to miss. Private property, no vehicle access. The next afternoon I heard metal clatter, and I watched Diane's BMW push 2 signs over like they were cardboard cutouts. And then, catering vans followed her. 3 of them. Heavy tires, deep grooves. And somewhere under that churned mud, my sprinkler line snapped with a sound I felt in my teeth. The next envelope hit my mailbox like a slap. Hostile signage creating an unwelcoming atmosphere. And an invoice, an actual invoice, claiming I owed money for landscaping damage to community property. That's when my calm started to crack. Not into screaming, into that cold, focused kind of anger you get when someone tries to rewrite reality right in front of you. I walked next door to Jake Miller, a retired insurance adjuster who'd lived here longer than anybody. He watched my lawn, whistled once, and said, "She's done this before. Different yards, different events. Always the same play." That night I sat at my kitchen table with bills spread out, staring at numbers that didn't care how fair I was. I'll admit it, there was a moment where I just sat there and thought, maybe I should stop fighting, just let it go, let her win, save my blood pressure. And then another thought hit right behind it, practical and ugly. If I don't stop her, she'll just pick the next yard, and the next, and eventually nobody has a yard left, just a neighborhood run by threats. So I got up, made coffee, and did what I've always done when something's broken. I gathered data. I installed cameras pointed at my own property. Legal, obvious, nothing sneaky. I kept a log, dates, times, damage, photos, copies of every notice and invoice. And Diane noticed immediately. Of course she did. A letter from a downtown law firm showed up, the kind of letter that's more expensive than my monthly grocery budget. It accused me of harassment and surveillance and threatened to file a restraining order if I kept recording her legitimate community activities. I read that line and just stared at it. Legitimate community activities, like driving over someone's lawn. I didn't respond with emotion. I responded with paperwork. I emailed the HOA board, not Diane the board, with a clean, simple message. I am documenting repeated trespass and property damage. Please confirm in writing that HOA authorizes vehicles to use my lawn. No one replied. Silence is an answer when it comes from people who know the truth looks bad on paper. 2 weeks later, Diane announced a big charity fundraiser at the community center, and the notice she taped to my front door wasn't a request. It was a decree. Auxiliary parking will utilize the Reynolds front lawn due to high attendance. She even cited an emergency provision that, when I looked it up, had absolutely nothing to do with parking. That's when Jake said something that made my stomach drop and my brain light up at the same time. Mark, she's not just being a bully. This smells like a scheme. He helped me pull the publicly filed HOA reports. And suddenly, all those event-related repairs and community restoration expenses started stacking up. Same vendor names, same rounded numbers, same little trail of money leaving the neighborhood and never coming back as actual work. I handed everything to my insurance company's fraud department. I sent a packet to the county clerk's office, and because I was done being the quiet guy, I tipped a local investigative reporter who'd been sniffing around HOA drama for months. The day of Diane's fundraiser arrived crisp and clear, the kind of fall evening that should have been peaceful. Instead, I stood behind my blinds watching valet workers in white gloves wave cars onto my grass like it was a hotel driveway. BMWs, Teslas, luxury SUVs. Every tire pressed down, another reminder that Diane thought my home was her resource. At exactly 5:30, a news van rolled in. Not for me, obviously. Diane had invited them to film her community leadership. I took a breath and stepped outside. Not charging, not yelling, just walking straight to the line where my property began, holding a folder and my phone like I was about to present at a meeting. Diane spotted me and marched over heels, sinking slightly into the soft ground, smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Mark," she said loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "this is for charity. Don't embarrass yourself." I looked at her BMW, parked inches off the exact path it always took, and then I looked at the camera crew setting up across the way. "Diane," I said steady, "I'm not embarrassing myself. You are." She did that thing where she laughs like you're a child, and she raised her clipboard like it had authority over the laws of the state. So I held up my phone. "One question," I said. "Do you want to explain on video why you've been driving across my lawn for months? Or should I let your tires explain it for you?" Her smile twitched. Just a little. She leaned closer, voice low, teeth clenched. "You're going to regret this." And right then, like the universe has a sense of timing, the county sheriff's vehicle pulled into the community center lot. Then another car behind it, unmarked, quiet, purposeful. 2 people stepped out, walked over, and asked calmly for Diane Whitmore by name. Not ma'am, not HOA president, just Diane. The news camera swung toward us like it smelled blood in the water. Diane tried to speak first. Of course she did, launching into a practice speech about community and volunteer leadership and uncooperative residents. The deputy didn't match her energy. He asked one simple question: "Is this your vehicle?" and pointed at the BMW sitting on my property. Diane's eyes flicked to the cameras, then to me, then back to the deputy. "Yes," she said too quickly. "And do you have written permission from the homeowner to park here?" She opened her mouth, and nothing came out. That silence didn't last long. The deputy nodded once, like that was all he needed, and turned to the valet. "Clear the area. This is private property. No more vehicles on the lawn." Diane's face changed in real time, like someone unplugged the power. "Excuse me," she snapped louder now because she couldn't help herself. The unmarked car's driver stepped forward and handed her a document. "You're being notified to preserve all HOA financial records related to event expenses and property repairs," he said. Voice flat, professional. "Do not destroy anything." Diane's hand actually shook when she took it. Not dramatic. Just a tiny tremor that told me everything underneath her confidence was hollow. And then the tow truck showed up. Heavy chain, slow movements, no sympathy. Diane turned toward me like I'd personally ordered it. "You can't do this," she hissed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I didn't. I said, and I gestured toward the deputy, toward the cameras, toward her own car sitting where it never had the right to sit. "You did. You just finally did it in front of people who don't answer to your clipboard." The chain hooked. The BMW's front end lifted slightly, and the crowd, her distinguished guests, stood frozen. Phones up, whispers spreading like wildfire. Diane stepped back, eyes wide, trying to find someone to intimidate, someone to overtalk. But there was nowhere to aim it. The tow truck pulled her car off my lawn, leaving flattened grass and a muddy scar behind. And for the first time in months, the sound of tires stopped. She stood there, empty-handed, clipboard hanging at her side, like it weighed 100 pounds. The deputy spoke again, quiet but clear. "Ma'am, you need to come with us and answer a few questions." Diane's mouth opened one last attempt to take control, then closed when she realized the cameras were still rolling. And in that moment, she didn't look like a queen anymore. She looked like what she always was, a bully who finally met a system bigger than her ego. Sometimes the lesson is simple: document everything and let the truth do the damage.